Hello, Power Platformers. Today we are going to cover a feature which is very important in application development, but is often neglected when we are developing apps in PowerApps, and that's end-to-end testing. Now, previously, we didn't had a lot of tooling available in PowerApps Studio to do end-to-end testing for our PowerApps, but thankfully, now we have a tool available called Test Studio, which we can use for managing our test cases and designing our tests, and then running the tests before we publish the app to the wider audience. Now, Test Studio basically provides us a lot of features for managing our test suites. So we basically start off by designing our app and then publishing the app, and then we create test suites in PowerApps Studio. Test Studio will then define the test cases, and then we can play those test cases, and finally we can store or share the results of our test cases as well. Now, this will really help us in building manageable and easy to test apps in PowerApps. All right, so now let's jump into it and start building an app and then use it in our Test Studio for end-to-end testing. Okay, so let's jump into it now. So we are going to start, this time we're going to quickly create an app, and we are going to use a SharePoint data source for that. So let's just start with selecting from data. And we're going to use an existing list in SharePoint for designing that app. So we're going to use this list. So if I go here, I will select my connection, which I'm pretty sure is for the site. So I will select the site, and then I'll select the list which I want to use for this app. Tracker, and then connect. And that will basically automate some of the capabilities for me, and basically will create an out-of-the-box app for me, which is pretty functional. Although I mean, there's a lot of things that can be improved, but it's pretty functional for me to start off with, and that's all I need for this demo. So we have a browse screen, then we have a detail screen, and we have an edit screen. Now, I'm just going to make a few quick changes to the edit screen and remove some of the fields that I don't need. So I'll just click on this, and I'll remove source, I'll move this, and that rest looks pretty good for now. All right, so that's pretty much it. And now I will save the app. I'll call it issue testing app. All right, so once I'll save it, I'll just run it once to make sure that it is running fine. So that is something that you can call developer testing. So I'll just run it out. Now, I'll just try to create a new issue instead. So I'll go to my browse screen here. I'll play it again, and then I'll create a new one. So I'll call it demo. And I'll just put in some values here just to have a quick test. And then select the date here. Oops. And then press on this button that will submit my item. And voila. So our item has been submitted successfully. That means this app is working fine. Now let's just close that. Now I have saved this app. Now, in order for me to start creating test cases for this app, I'll need to publish it first. So let's publish this app. Oh, it's already published. Good. So next thing is we are going to start creating our test suite and then start writing the test cases for this app. All right, so if I go at the bottom here, you will see there's an option for advanced tools. And once I click on Advanced Tools, I'll have two options available. Now I will click on Open Tests. That will open up Test Studio for me. So if I click on that, this will open up Test Studio. So basically, this is the Test Studio. Now you can see on the left, there's one test suite that is created by default. Now you can have multiple test suites to manage your test cases. If you are managing test cases by scenarios or by different features of the app, then you can do that by creating multiple suites. We'll just stick with this one and we're gonna rename it to So this is our default suite for this app. Okay, and from here we can create new tests. So let's create our first test and let's call it test add record. So we're basically going to create a test for adding a new record. Right. Now these are the functions that are supported by Test Studio that you can use when you are designing your test cases. So you can either create your test cases manually, or you can do a recording that will basically record all the steps for you. So let's do that. But before we get into that, there's another thing that I wanted to show you. So if you click on here, so here you can define what happens or what you want to do when your test case starts, when your test case complete, and when your test suite is completed. So for now, let's say that when my test case starts, I always start to start off with my browse screen. So I will navigate to browse screen first. So this will ensure that whenever I run my test case, then the first screen will be the browser screen. All right, so let's leave it here for now, and let's record our first test case. Now I will perform all the operations that I want to record for my test case steps. So I'll click on New, then I will provide some test data. Studio. Then I'll set priority to, let's say, normal, status to duplicate, assign to, I'll just assign it to myself, and report, I will just select a date for that. All right, and that's pretty much it. Now I will click on submit, and that's it. I have finished off recording my test. Now I will close it. Now it will show me that I haven't saved my recording yet. I don't want to discard it. So let's go on and save our app. Save our test case. I should move myself here. All right, let's click on done. And as you can see that the test case has been recorded and all the steps that we performed are recorded as well. All right, that looks cool. Now let's save that, publish it. And now let's play our first test case. Right, once the publish is done, let's play it and see how it works. So this is basically going to play the test which I just recorded. As you can see that there's only one test case, so it will only perform that test case. And that looks fine. That all looks good. And that's it. So our test case has finished successfully. Now we can press done. And so this is basically how you will run your test case that you have created. But there is one issue with that, and that is, so when I ran this test, it actually went and created a record here. And I don't really want to populate my test data here. So what I will do is I will go back to my test studio, and in the view on the on test case completed, I will basically delete the record which I just created, so that I don't really go on and populate a lot of records which I don't really need. So yep, let's do that. So in order for me to do that, I will do a remove if, and in remove if, I'll select the issue tracker as my collection, data source, and here I will use description field. Issue description rules. Studio. So this is basically the description that I'm providing in my app. So I am just gonna remove the items from the data source, from the list that has the word issue, that has this description of Test Studio in it. So this is kind of like a cleanup activity that we can perform. All right. So there's something wrong here. Remove if we expect a Boolean at this point in this formula. Right. So let's see what's wrong here. All right. That should fix it. All right. So that's good. Now let's just try it out. And in fact, let's do one more thing before we play it again. Let's create another test. And this time, I click here, click new case, and let's rename it to, let's say, record details. So basically, for this case, I'll just view details of a particular record. Right, so let's record this one as well. And this is going to be pretty straightforward. I come to this screen, I click on a item here. This will show me details. And if I click back, then it will take me back to the browse screen. And that's pretty much it. That's all I want to do for this test case. All right, let's save it. Now, one last thing that we want to do before we run our test suite again is on test suite completed. So basically what I want to do here is I want to submit my test results or share my test results somewhere. And for now, I'm going to use a list in my SharePoint site for capturing those test results. So I'm going to use this list, which basically fulfills the requirement for me for now. And at the end, on test suite completed, I'll just create an entry in that record. So in order for me to create that entry, I'll need to add that data source in my Power App. So I'll just go back to my Power App. In the data sources, I'll add that data source. All right, I need to locate SharePoint. I'll use the same connection again, same site again, and I'll use the app test suite results. All right, so now my data source has been added. I'll just do a quick save. And if I go back to my test results, I should be able to add it here. All right, nice. So basically all this formula is doing is it's basically adding an entry in app search results list. And I'm just providing some data here based on the test results, because we can access test case result and test suite result records. And that is all available for us to basically capture and then send it to somewhere. In our scenario, it will be a list in SharePoint. All right, that looks all good. Now let's try it again. This time, let's publish it. Now, once the publish is done, we will play the test suite again. All right, so this time you can see that it is going to perform two test cases. So add record and record details. And then there are some additional steps available here, which it is going to perform as well. On test case complete, and then on test suite complete. Okay, first test is completed successfully, and our second test is completed successfully as well. So both our tests are completed successfully, and the suite is completed. So if I click on done, you can see the test results here in play status. And if I go to my app test results list, I can see that an item is added here, which shows the results. So it shows the title, the test suite ID, test suite name, start date, end date, and the number of tests passed. And if there's any test failed, then it will show it here as well. All right, that all looks cool. So now let's say what happens if one of our tests fail. And that's basically something that we are trying to capture, right, by using test cases to make sure that if I develop an app and if someone else develops something on top of that, or even if I develop something on top of that, which removes some of the basic functionality or previous functionality, then I should be able to capture it using test cases. So if I go back to my Power App, I'll make a quick change here. So I'm not going to do much. I'm just going to comment this navigation. So if you click on it now, then it won't go anywhere. It will just stay on this screen. We should be able to at least fail one of my test cases. All right, so let's do it. Okay, that looks good. And now if I go back here, my test cases, let me just refresh it once. All right, now our test suite has started running again. Now the first test is running. Let's see what happens. All right, so basically our first test failed, which was expected because we removed the navigation, and if you can't navigate to the screen, then you can't set the values, and that's why it has failed. And if I click on done here, it will show me that one of my test cases has failed. And if I go back and look at my app test suite results, let me refresh it once more. You can see here that this time I have one test pass and one test has failed. All right, now if I want to capture more details, I can capture more details on which test passed and which test has failed, but I think I'm good for now to just go in here and see which test cases actually failed. All right, and now let's go back to the app and let's fix it up so that our test cases will pass next time. Oops, there you go. All good. Now, if I open tests again, now one last thing that I wanted to cover in our demo today is assertion. So basically, assertion is when you are trying to validate a certain field or a certain value, and then perform something based on that. So in my case, add records, I will add one more step, and that's called assert. And in assert, I will assert basically what I will do is I will make sure that the date that is entered here is greater than today's date. Oh, sorry, less than today's date. So I'll just copy this thing from here. So in a session, the first thing that we are doing is we are comparing something. So in this scenario, I'm comparing my date recorded and I'm making sure it is less than today. All right, and if it is less than today, then I will say it's a valid date. And it makes no sense. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now, in order for me to test that, I'll just run this test case again. Now it will run the test and it will make sure that the entered date is less than today. And if it is less than today, then it will pass the assertion. And if it is not, then it will fail the assertion. And you can use that to basically validate some of the rules that you have defined within your app. So you can have more test cases covering different type of rules that you have defined, and then you can use assert to validate those rules. All right, that looks good. All right, so that's pretty much it for today, guys. So today we covered Test Studio and how we can manage and create our test cases and even different test suites to manage our test cases for the Power App, and then use it as we develop our apps and add more features to the app to make sure that our app stays resilient and our app remains error-free. Hope you guys have enjoyed this session, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Till next time, take care.